Hello, believers, non-believers, and everyone in between. You're listening to Stories with Sapphire. I am Sapphire Sandalo. Now get cozy and open your mind because it's story time. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Vibe Stream. Welcome, Makala Charmaine, Girl, X Casper, Riley Slaya, I Know, Drew C, Min Nerd, Mr. Mysterious, Adam Lombardo. Someone just kicked up. Welcome. So this is the live stream I do every Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific. And instead of reading your emails, I read from some books that I have on hand. And today, I believe we're going to be finishing the third installment of Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. There's a couple of very classic ones that we're reading, including The Red Spot. I know you guys are familiar with that one. And what else do you need to know? That's it. Okay, cool. I'm very cozy today, if you can't tell. All right, can you guys still hear me if the microphone's like that? Hello, hello, hello. I think it's fine. Sometimes I like holding it because it makes me sound clearer, but all right, here we go. Ready? Ooh, here we go. The Red Spot. We all know this one, huh? While Ruth slept, a spider crawled across her face. It stopped for several minutes on her left cheek, then went on its way. "What is that red spot in my cheek?" she asked her mother the next morning. "Looks like a spider bite," her mother said. "It will go away, just don't scratch it." Soon, the small red spot grew into a small red boil. "Look at it now," Ruth said. "It's getting bigger. It's sore." "That sometimes happens," her mother said. "It's coming to a head." In a few days, the boil was even larger. You know what? I'm going to hold it. I think I like holding it. "Look at it now," Ruth said. "It hurts and it's ugly." "We'll have the doctor look at it," her mother said. "Maybe it's infected." But the doctor could not see Ruth until the next day. That night, Ruth took a hot bath. As she soaked herself, the boil burst. Out poured a swarm of tiny spiders from the eggs their mother had laid in her cheek. Ugh. It's loud as hell. Oh, is it too loud now? Fine, I'll put it down here. There we go. Can you still hear me? Oh gosh, I hate that one because I don't like the idea of tiny, tiny spiders. Ooh, this one's called No Thanks. Let me move it up just a touch. Everyone can still hear me? Sorry, we're... Since we're finishing this book this week, I ordered a couple other books, some R.L. Stine, like family-friendly spooky stories. All right, here we go. This one's called No Thanks. Thursday nights, Jim worked as a stock boy in one of the malls out on the highway. By 8:30, he was usually finished and he drove home. But that night, Jim was one of the last to leave. By the time he got out to the huge parking lot, it was almost empty. The only sounds were cars in the distance and his footsteps on the pavement. Suddenly, a man stepped out of the shadows. "Hey, mister," he called in a low voice. He held out his right hand. Balanced on the palm was the long, thin blade of a knife. Jim stopped. Nice, sharp knife, the man said softly. Don't panic, Jim thought. The man stepped toward him. Don't run, Jim told himself. Nice, sharp knife, the man repeated. Give him what he wants, Jim thought. The man came closer. He held the knife up. Cuts nice and easy, he said slowly. Jim waited. The man peered into his face. Hey man, only $3, 2 for $5. Nice present for your mama. No thanks, Jim said. She's got one. And he ran for his car. What? That took me a second to get. I was like, quick. So he thought that he was being mugged, but the guy was actually just selling a knife for $3. That's a goofy one. That was goofy. Okay. What is going on here? When bottles began popping and furniture began flying all over the house, there were many explanations, but none of them was right. Then someone had a scary answer that could involve you. Okay, that's the introduction to this section. This one's called The Trouble. Oh yeah? Yeah, sorry. It's because it's not direct. It's not like directly at my mouth. That's why it sounds like that. Oh no! Hang on. I can figure it out. Alright, that should be better. It's closer. Alright, this is called The Trouble. The events in this story took place in 1958 in a small white house in a suburb of New York City. The names of the people involved have been changed. Monday, February 3. Tom Lombardo. Tom Lombardo. Any relation, Adam? Tom Lombardo and his sister Nancy had just come home from school. Tom was going on 13. Nancy was 14. They were talking to their mother in the living room when they heard a loud pop in the kitchen. It sounded like a cork had been pulled from the bottle of champagne, but it was nothing like that. The cap on a bottle of starch had somehow come unscrewed, and the bottle had tipped over and spilled. Then bottles all over the house began popping. Bottles of nail polish remover, shampoo, bleach, rubbing alcohol, even a bottle of holy water. Each had a screw cap that took 2 or 3 full turns to open, but each had opened by itself, without any human help, then had fallen over and spilled. What is going on here? Mrs. Lombardo asked. Nobody knew, but the popping soon stopped and everything went back to normal. It was just one of those crazy things, they decided, and put it out of their minds. Thursday, February 6. Just after Tom and Nancy got home from school, 6 more bottles popped their caps. The next day, at the same time, another 6 did. Sunday, February 9. At 11 o'clock that morning, Tom was in the bathroom brushing his teeth. His father was standing in the doorway talking to him. All of a sudden, the bottle of medicine began moving across the vanity by itself and fell into the sink. At the same time, a bottle of shampoo moved to the edge of the vanity and crashed to the floor. They watched, spellbound. "I better call the police," Mr. Lombardo said. That afternoon, a patrolman interviewed the family as bottles popped in the bathroom. The police assigned a detective named Joseph Briggs to the case. Detective Briggs was a practical man. When something moved, he believed that a human or an animal had moved it, or that it moved because of a vibration or the wind or some other natural cause. He did not believe in ghosts. When the Lombardos said they had nothing to do with what was going on, he thought that at least one of them was lying. He wanted to examine the house. Then he wanted to talk to some experts and find out what they thought. Tuesday, February 11. The bottle of holy water that had opened a week before opened a second time and spilled. 2 days later, it spilled again. Saturday, February 15. Tom, Nancy, and a relative were watching TV in the living room when a small porcelain statue rose up from a table. It flew 3 feet through the air, then fell to the rug. Monday, February 17. A priest blessed the Lombardos' house to protect it against whatever was causing the trouble. Thursday, February 20. While Tom was doing his homework at one end of the dining room table, a sugar bowl at the other end flew into the hall and crashed. Detective Briggs saw it happen. Later, a bottle of ink on the table flew into a wall and broke, spattering in all directions. Then another porcelain statue took off. It traveled 12 feet and smashed into a desk. Friday, February 21. To get some peace, the Lombardos went to a relative's house for the weekend. While they were gone, everything at home was normal. Sunday, February 23. When the Lombardos returned, another sugar bowl took off. It flew into a wall and smashed to smithereens. Later, a heavy bureau in Tom's room toppled over, but no one was in the room when it happened. Monday, February 24. By now, Detective Briggs had talked to an engineer, a chemist, a physicist, and others. Some thought that vibrations in the house were causing the trouble. These could come from underground water, they said, or from high-frequency radio waves, or from sonic booms caused by airplanes. Others said that the electrical system was the cause, or downdrafts coming through the chimney. The popping of bottles was blamed on chemicals the bottles contained. Tests showed that there were no vibrations in the house. There was nothing wrong with the electrical system, and there were no chemicals in the bottles that would make them pop. Then what was causing the trouble? None of the experts knew. But every day, the Lombardos received dozens of letters and telephone calls from people who thought they did know. Many believed that the house was haunted. They thought that a poltergeist was on the loose. Ooh, cool little picture. What is it? They thought that a poltergeist was on the loose, the noisy ghost that is blamed when things move around on their own. No one has proved that poltergeists exist, but people everywhere have told stories about them for hundreds of years. And what they have told was not too different from what was happening to the Lombardos. Detective Briggs did not, of course, believe in poltergeists. He had begun to believe that Tom Lombardo might be to blame. Whenever something happened, Tom was usually in the room or nearby. When he accused Tom of causing the trouble, the boy denied it. "I don't know what's going on," he said. "All I know is that it scares me." People said that Detective Briggs was a tough cop who would turn in his mother if she did something wrong. But he believed Tom. Only now, he didn't know what to think. Tuesday, February 25. A newspaper reporter came to the house to interview the family. Afterward, he sat in the living room by himself, hoping that something would happen that he could describe in his story. Tom's room was just across the hall from where the reporter sat. The boy had gone to bed, but he had left his door open. Suddenly, a globe of the world flew out of the darkened room and smashed into a wall. The reporter dashed into the bedroom and turned on the light. Tom was sitting in bed, blinking as if he had just been awakened from a sound sleep. "What was that?" he asked. Wednesday, February 26. In the morning, a small plastic statue of the Virgin Mary rose up from a dresser in Mr. and Mrs. Lombardo's bedroom and flew into a mirror. That night, while Tom was doing his homework, a 10-pound record player took off from a table, flew 15 feet, then crashed to the floor. Friday, February 28. 2 scientists arrived from Duke University in North Carolina. They were parapsychologists who studied experiences like those the Lombardos were having. They spent several days talking to the family and examining the house, trying to understand what was going on and what was causing it. One night, a bottle of bleach popped its top, but that was all that happened during their visit. They did not tell the Lombardos about a theory they had that a poltergeist actually might be involved in such cases. According to this idea, poltergeists were not ghosts. They were normal teenagers. They had become so troubled by a problem that their emotions built up into a kind of vibration. Since it was taking place in their unconscious minds, they didn't even know it was happening. but the vibration somehow left their bodies and moved whatever it struck. It happened again and again until the problem had been solved. Scientists had given this strange power a name. They called it psychokinesis. That was going to be my guess. The ability to move objects with mental power or mind over matter. No one knew if this really could happen or how to prove it, yet most reports of poltergeists did involve families with teenage children, and there were 2 teenagers in the Lombardo family. Monday, March 3. The parapsychologists said that they would prepare a report on what they had learned. The day after they left, the trouble returned with a vengeance. Tuesday, March 4. In the afternoon, a bowl of flowers flew off the dining room table and smashed into a cupboard. Then a bottle of bleach jumped out of a cardboard box and popped its top. Then a bookcase filled with encyclopedias fell over and wedged itself between a radiator and wall. Then a flashlight bulb on a table rose up and hit a wall 12 feet away. Finally, 4 knocks were heard coming from the kitchen when nobody was in that room. Wednesday, March 5. While Mrs. Lombardo was making breakfast, she heard a loud crash in the living room. The coffee table had turned over by itself. But that was the end of it. After a month of chaos, everything returned to normal. In August, the 2 parapsychologists gave their report. They decided that the Lombardos had not made up the story, nor had they imagined it. Their trouble had been real. But what had caused it? They said that no pranks or tricks were involved, nor was any magic. As the police had done, they also ruled out vibrations from underground water and other physical causes. The only explanation they could not rule out was the possibility that a teenage poltergeist had been at work, moving objects with mental power. They did not have enough evidence to prove it, but it was the only answer they had. If it was a poltergeist, they thought it was Tom. If they were right, if a normal boy like Tom had become a poltergeist, this also might happen to other teenagers. It might even happen to you. Interesting. I love how that was long. The heck? Oh, are they supposed to be funny? Okay. That was interesting. That was like a really long story on, I believe that was probably like actually real. 1958. I wonder what story they're talking about. New York City. I'm not familiar with that one. All right. So we've got one that's apparently supposed to be funny. We'll be the judge of that. You never hear of poltergeists doing anything nice, and the instant we turned our backs, we turned around again to find our taxes were finished. Thanks for the super chat, Adam. I beg to differ. I have heard stories of ghosts being nice, but those are not the ones that people like hearing. I'm actually editing an episode right now that's going up in 2 weeks for the podcast, and it's about a woman who is friends with a poltergeist in her house, and she like helps her with her work and stuff. Like she gives her ideas. So yes, poltergeists do nice things sometimes if they're chill. Okay, so this one's called Strangers. A man and a woman happened to sit next to one another on a train. The woman took out a book and began reading. The train stopped at a half-dozen stations, but she never looked up once. The man watched her for a while, then asked, "What are you reading?" "It's a ghost story," she said. "It's very good, very spooky." "Do you believe in ghosts?" he asked. "Yes, I do," she replied. "There are ghosts everywhere." "I don't believe in them," he said. "It's just a lot of superstition. In all my years, I've never seen a ghost. Not one." "Haven't you?" the woman said, and vanished. Cute, short and sweet. I love it. All right, we got another one. This one's called The Hog. It's kind of cute. Little guy. When Arthur and Anne were in high school, they fell in love. They were both big, fat, and jolly and seemed suited to one another. But as sometimes happens, things didn't work out. Arthur moved away and married someone else, and Anne didn't marry anyone. And not too many years later, she got sick and died. Some said it was from a broken heart. One day, Arthur was driving to a small town not far from where he and Anne had grown up. Soon he realized that a hog was following him. No matter how fast Arthur drove, the hog stayed right behind. Each time he looked back, there was the hog. It began to irritate him. Finally, he couldn't stand it any longer. He stopped his car and rapped the hog on its nose, good and hard. "Get out of here, you fat, dirty thing," he shouted. To his astonishment, the hog spoke to him. It was Anne's voice he heard. "It's her ghost," he thought. "She has come back as a hog." "I was doing no harm, Arthur," the hog said. "I was just out for a brisk walk, enjoying myself. How could you strike me after all that we meant to one another?" With that, she turned and trotted away. And then it has this little note at the end. When you tell this story, have the hog speak in a high voice. No, thank you. Okay. I believe this will be our last one, because we are almost out of time. All right, here we go. This one's called Is Something Wrong? A car broke down late at night, way out in the country. The driver remembered passing an empty house a few minutes earlier. "I'll stay there," he thought. "At least I'll get some sleep." He found some wood in the corner of the living room and made a fire in the fireplace. He covered himself with his coat and slept. Toward morning, the fire went out and the cold awakened him. "It'll be light soon," he thought. "Then I'll go for help." He closed his eyes again, but before he could doze off, there was a terrible crash. Something big and heavy had fallen out of the chimney. It lay on the floor for a minute. Then it stood up and stared down at him. The man took one look and started running. He had never seen anything so horrible in his life. He paused just long enough to jump through a window. Then he ran and ran and ran and ran until he thought his lungs would burst. Sorry, excuse me. As he stood in the road panting, trying to catch his breath, he felt something tap him on the shoulder. He turned and found himself staring into two big, bloody eyes and a grinning skull. It was the horrible thing. "Pardon me," it said. "Is something wrong?" And this is the little thing that came out of the chimney. Let's see. I guess we have... No. All right, y'all. I guess we'll finish this book next week. Got a couple more left, and then we're gonna start on a new one. Well, thanks for sticking around to the end. Buy Gaming Channel, Lost, Moonwolf, Goldie, Roger, Anit, Adam Lombardo, Rafaela Vera, Flipping World, Riley Slaya, Aesthetic Wasteland. I will hopefully see you all